It's the moment you didn't know you're waiting for.
He is Carter.
He's Chad.
And this is the Irish 365 podcast.
Chad, this is Lou Holtz. That's head coach of Notre Dame for 11 years. Greatest experience of my life. They're starting the Notre Dame podcast this summer. I have a podcast as well, but it's not about Notre Dame football, although I wish there were. But congratulations on your success. And it would be nice if I could be on your podcast, but my schedule is so hectic. But anything that has to do with Notre Dame, I'm all for it. God bless you. Go Irish.
Welcome into the Irish 365 podcast, episode 29. We've got the USC preview this week.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting ready for USC. We're traveling out to LA, yep, for the big one. Rivalry week.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite rivalries.
Yep.
Like most rivalries, you kind of hate your rival.
Yeah.
And this is one of those rivalries where we really like our rival. Like, it's a rivalry we
That's how
want
you
to
feel.
win. I hate FSU. Like, I want to beat Florida State. I don't care how bad they are, how good they are. I want to beat Florida State.
Yep.
At some point in my life, I want to see us beat Ohio State. I hate Ohio State.
Yeah.
I love when we beat, like, Michigan. Like, those are schools I love the rivalry, but I love winning.
Yeah.
I want to win this rivalry.
Yep.
And it's always so much better when USC is up and Notre Dame are up.
Definitely.
And it seems like the last 15 years, probably your lifetime,
Yep.
they've either been really good or we've been really good. It hasn't been
both.
It hasn't been a back and forth like we'd like. I mean,
right.
So, but yeah, this is one of those schools I respect. It's like Stanford. You know, there's been a rivalry there. They've been down for a long time. They've been good at the point.
Yep.
But like you respect the school.
Yep.
Where I don't respect Michigan. I don't respect Ohio State.
No.
I don't respect Florida State. I just want to beat them.
Yep.
Miami. I just want to beat them.
Yes.
So this is different.
Yes.
So we need to talk. We need to talk travel.
Yep.
We're flying out. Just learned this morning our plans are changing as we go.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but we thought we got the win. We're flying out of the Fort Wayne airport and everything was going to be good. Problem with flying out of the Fort Wayne airport, there's one flight a day to Vegas.
Yep.
Or two flights a week to Vegas.
Yep.
And our flight's been delayed like 14 hours. So
Yep.
we're flying the next day.
Yep.
So I don't know what it is, but it is what it is. So
Definitely.
So what we need to do is we need to bring in someone to help us out on the USC side.
Yep.
And I thought, who do I know that's a USC fan?
Not many.
Not many. I do know a few.
know a few. Yeah.
But this was the most USC fan I know.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, we got to give Jen a call and see if she'll be on. So we're going to bring in Jen Kraft. Jen by Telegraph, I guess. You go with the hyphen there? You go with the hyphen there, Jen?
No, I don't go with Kraft at all.
Okay, you're strictly Jen by So Jen is a longtime friend of Christy and mine. We went to the same high school. Jen was a year or two younger than me, and a year or two older than Christy. In between us in the grades. And one of my good friends, Jason and Jen, have been friends and maintained a friendship. So Jen's friendship goes back a long ways. And Jen's been giving me a hard time. Like, I can remember coaching you, Carter, in pre-K football. And Jen found out your team name was the Trojans. She gave me all kinds of rap. Like, here I am coaching my first flag football team. They're the Trojans. This is awful. I don't even. You probably don't even remember that, Jen. But like, you enjoyed giving me a hard time on that one. So the USC Notre Dame rivalry is a long-standing rivalry. Jen, you're a USC fan, and you have been for a while. So let's find out a little bit more about that. What made you a USC fan? How did you get to this place in your life?
You know, when you and I were talking earlier this week, and I was thinking back to that. I started at USC in '93. I went to USC for my undergrad. And I remember going to my first football game, but I remember getting on a bus. And I thought, why did I get on a bus to go to a football game? Because I went to USC, the Coliseum's right next door. You guys are going to experience it on Saturday. It's a phenomenal game day experience. You're on campus for the tailgate. You literally walk across Exposition Boulevard. You're going to kick the flagpole. You're going to walk through the Rose Garden. It's really such a great day when you're going through the whole home, game experience. So I was like, why did I get on a bus? So I did a little research, and for some reason, we played North Carolina in Anaheim, California. It was the first football game in 1993 for the fall season. But when I was a freshman, the first week when you're a Trojan, that first week you spend, you learn the fight song, you learn your alma mater, you learn the Southern California cheer, which is pretty funny. It's just spelling out Southern California.
Yeah.
You go to your first football game, and then afterwards, which I hope we have the chance to have this experience together, you get your first Tommy's Burger, which is a chili cheeseburger. It's called Tommy's Run. You go to the original Tommy's down on Rampart Boulevard. But it's just the whole experience. And it's your first time getting indoctrinated into the Trojan family and everything about being part of SC, being a Trojan. It's all about being part of this large Trojan family. And you feel it for the first time when you walk on campus. You feel it that first week when you're a freshman. But let me tell you, there's nothing that reinforces that sense of community like being at a USC football game. And, 6 days later, we had our first home game and we were at the Coliseum. And that really is what drove it home for me. So that was the beginning of my fandom. I was 18. It was 1993, and I was a freshman in college, and I was sold that first week.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, we talk about what makes you a fan, and I think it's how close you are to the university or attending the university. Like, those are things when it comes to college sports that'll make you a fan. And obviously, you're moving from Kansas at that time to LA, so you don't know a whole lot of people. It's not like you've got this friends and family network that's like all over the place. That's your hometown. So you're away from everything, and you make these. I'm sure these group of friends from the dorm room that are all going to the game, and it becomes that. I mean, that's why Notre Dame fans are so rabid, is because there's nothing else to do in South Bend in the fall. Your first introduction is going to games, and LA's got a lot more competing with it than the football game. But I mean, so 93 USC was decent, but not phenomenal. But they followed that up with some really good years. What year did Carroll come to USC? What was his first year? Because
that's a good question. It was definitely in the 2000s. 93 was when John Robinson came back.
Okay.
And I remember that being a big deal because everybody talked about how great it was that John Robinson was back. And like you said, I was from Kansas. I didn't know anything. I was like, who's John Robinson? What's the big deal about this? And it didn't matter. Like, it really wasn't even about the wins and losses, right? It was just about the game day experience and going with your dorm, friends. And but Pete Carroll, when he came on,
he came in
early
01.
2000.
Was it 01?
01. I was
01.
gonna,
Yep.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I was going to say 01. That changed things. That's when it went from being like, this is just going to be fun and we probably aren't going to win. I remember suffering through those Paul Hackett years. They were painful. You truly had to go just to enjoy the day with friends. You did not go hoping for a win during the Paul Hackett years. But man, when Pete Carroll came along, Coach Carroll was there. That was a different kind of fun because we went to the game just expecting a win. We learned to really expect the win, enjoy the win. I started traveling like you guys are doing this year. Just so many away games, and that was a different level of fandom. You guys talk about different types of fandom at different times of your life. That was when I really was able to enjoy being an SC fan and be on the road a lot more for the games. And oh man, that was a good time. Yeah, we miss Coach Carroll, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know you made it out to Notre Dame multiple times for games with your friends and your family and friend group and things of that nature. So I know you've traveled a lot. And when you were in the Pac-12, the travel was a little easier because it was mostly the West Coast.
Yeah,
and that's what always makes the Notre Dame travel a little harder because we play such a broad schedule. I mean, we had a really favorable schedule for us this year to do the travel, but we still were in South Texas to start the season. We were in New York last week. We're going to LA, next week. And it's like
been in Atlanta, been in
Atlanta. But that was a light travel schedule for the team. I mean, because the other travel game was Purdue, a couple hours across the state. From our house, it's not much farther than going to South Bend. So yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of travel, and it's a different experience. And like the 93 time period was when Notre Dame was kind of peaked and on its down We lost Lou Holtz as a coach, and we brought in Bob Davie, and then we went to the Willingham, and like that was late 90s, early 2000s. We kind of fell apart. And then we got Charlie Weiss, and we were just decent. And then finally we got Brian Kelly, and he brought us back to some sort of relevance.
Yeah.
To a 10-win season. But yeah, we went through some tough years. I always say Carter's a much better fan than I am, because my fandom for Notre Dame started in like the mid 80s when we were on the rise, and Lou Holtz had us winning national championships. His started in the mid 2000s, and we weren't that good.
No.
He hated Reggie Bush.
Yep.
Not, this guy just kills us like every chance he gets. So, and I think it's kind of interesting because I've heard people make this comp from like one of our players right now, and Jeremiah Love's one of our star running backs, and people are like, "Oh, he's so Reggie Bush like," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, should I be mad or thrilled?" Because like Reggie Bush,
it was good.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
Like, no denying how good that guy was. Although he cheated, I won't bring up the Bush push. He cheated.
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah. It's legal today.
Shouldn't have gave him his Heisman back either.
Yeah. But yeah, I always remember one of my favorite quotes from that game from Reggie Bush was like, "The grass is so tall at Notre Dame, you'd have to mow it twice." Just because we grew the grass out tall. You guys were so fast and so much better than us, and we had the great hope in Brady Quinn that year. And we
Matt Leinart.
Yeah, Matt Leinart. And it's always fun. I don't know if you ever watched the Big Noon Kickoff with Matt Leinart and Brady Quinn, and they still have a little
and
bit.
Reggie Bush.
And Reggie Bush. But they play up that rivalry a little bit, and you can tell it's a little more played up for TV than what it actually is. I mean, the rivalry was strong back in the day, but they've gotten past that. So anyway, USC, like you guys' season this year, I guess let me ask you this. Wasn't on my calendar or my list of things to ask you, but I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite USC football memory? What jumps out at you when you talk about your favorite memory?
Oh, you're going to kill me when I tell you it's the Bush push.
It is the Bush push?
I was there.
Okay, yeah.
I was there. Yeah, and this is the thing. You talked about it in your opening. It's about the Notre Dame-USC rivalry. I was not only there, I was there with Notre Dame friends.
Yeah.
I'd gone to the game with some Notre Dame friends. I have a good friend, his name's Don Dickinson. We've been friends for years, and he's a great Notre Dame alum. He's hosted me and my friends, quite a lot of times. We've gone out to South Bend, and, it's that just collegiality among college football, fans, and it's the respect we have for the rivalry. And I was even sitting in, a Notre Dame section for that game, which was hard, but it was the back and forth in the lead, the lead changed. And it was, I remember, our little group of Trojan fans, we would be, cheering, and then everybody else in that section would be sitting down. And then when we were sitting down, everybody else in the section would be standing up. And I remember walking away from that game thinking, I know I've just seen the most amazing football game I will ever see in my life.
Yeah, that was an absolute phenomenal game.
Yep.
Phenomenal. And if your team comes out on top of one of those games, it sticks with you.
Never forget it.
Yeah.
And and your team loses one of those games, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
Either way. So that's a great memory. So USC this year, you guys, you got Lincoln Riley, which is a phenomenal coach, I think. But now that's being brought into question. So he's known to be a quarterback developer. He's got a track record of that, but things have not gone as you guys had hoped this year. So, as I casually follow USC, I'm not, I would be basic at best.
And it has gotten easier for us, though, since they've joined the Big Ten. We are seeing a lot more stuff in our media around here. We're Midwest media, seeing a lot of Big Ten. So, I'm definitely interested. What was the take on, USC joining the Big Ten? That's a big change from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten.
It is. In some ways it's hard because we do cling to tradition.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Pac-12 was a really poorly run conference. We just never ended up with a good TV contracts. We, it was the right move to make. I am glad we made the move we made. Now that I don't live in California, I'm kind of glad that I can make some of those those away games a little easier. So selfishly, I'm okay with that too. I think we had to make it from a financial move. We had to make it. I also think it was an intermediate step, right? Like the way the conferences look now is not how they're going to look 4 to 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. We're going to see how this all shakes out. So I think it was a really smart move on the part of the people who made the decision. I think it's been tough for Lincoln Riley. I don't think he necessarily has made the shift to the Big Ten the way we'd hoped he was going to.
Yeah.
It's been a disappointing season. I think from, we talk about finances, at the end of the day, I think there's 2 games I look at when I look at college football. There's the players, these are kids, these are student athletes. I like to put the emphasis on student, even though now they're getting paid NIL money, but they're still students. They're out there working their tails off. They're working toward their dreams. They are, relying on their adults, these coaches, to develop them and to become better players. And then you have these coaches who are making a lot of money to deliver on results. So when the results aren't there, we got to, hold them accountable. So we're a little disappointed. We're disappointed as a fan base, of course, and the fact that we have the 3rd highest paid coach in college football right now, and we're not even a top 25 ranked team right now.
So I think this is an interesting thing about USC. Like, and we can compare and contrast. I don't want to say that they're alike, but there are similarities between like Notre Dame and USC. And coaching at USC is unlike coaching a lot of places. I think there's probably a handful of jobs, maybe 4 jobs in college football that can understand that they're unique. Notre Dame's unique in what it is. Recruiting's much harder because we don't have, warm weather. The drought. They're all the SEC. We haven't had the record. I think Alabama's a tough place to be a coach because just the expectation and the rabidness of Alabama fans. I think Georgia falls into that a little bit. I think Texas falls. But USC, I mean, like Pete Carroll was the perfect USC coach. One, he was a good coach that won football, but when he walked in a room, he owned the room. Like, and LA is such a personality. Does Lincoln Riley have the right personality? Because I think it's tough to have the right personality to be the Notre Dame coach. And I think USC is maybe even harder because you have to relate to these 18-year-old kids, but you have to compete with movie stars. And I mean, how many times have I seen famous people on the sideline at USC games? Yeah. And I mean, that's something the coach has to be big enough to own that room. It's easy to be the coach at IU because the biggest star you're going to see is John Mellencamp. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have that competition, right? So like, yeah. So does he fit the personality persona of USC? And that's the one thing I kind of wondered because at Oklahoma, it's a different need. The donors, the expectation, the alumni, it's just a different expectation, I guess. So does he fit the room well? Does he fill the room? Does he own a room when he's in it?
Well, I think if he makes better play calls and wins games, then he wouldn't have to compete and he could own a room.
There you go.
I think that's what it comes down to. I think when you're not winning games, then maybe you will fall in the trap of feeling like you have to compete. And the minute you feel like you have to compete, you've lost the room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and end of the day, these coaches are paid millions of dollars, but they're people. And when they're used to winning and they don't win, their confidence gets shattered as much as the kids. I mean, and they can't let it show. But, I mean, it's got to impact him. I mean, he's had a lot of success before coming to USC.
He's had a lot of success. Oregon's made a very similar move to the Big Ten, and Oregon's obviously top of the Big Ten, about to play for a Big Ten championship in a week. Like, came from a very situation. It's not an easy position for USC to be in at this point.
I mean, they were good last year.
Yeah.
And it's just,
obviously had the number 1 draft pick. Yeah. Like, it's not like it's the same team from last year, but.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams was a talent. Yeah. But, yeah, you guys, because you recently switched quarterbacks, didn't you?
We did. We switched quarterbacks 2 games ago.
Yeah.
But we have some other things going on, too. We're losing some recruits. So you've got some lost confidence from your fan base. You've got recruits that are falling out. You've got more than just losses here that are shattering your confidence. And it's a hard place to be. At the same time, he's got a huge buyout, so he's got some latitude. He's not going to lose his job tomorrow with the buyout that he's got right now. So he's got some time to turn it around. And I hope he does, but I'm not sure he will. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. So let's get into this Notre Dame USC game here. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you kind of feel like the strengths of the USC teams are this year? Like, where do you feel like because you got to feel like, again, we talked about this a little bit before we got on the camera. You guys have not lost a game by more than 7 points. And I think you've had a lead in the fourth quarter of every game this year, if I understand it right. So it's not like you're not competitive. Your record isn't what you hoped it to be, but
yeah, 1 or 2 balls goes a different way. You guys are competing for this college football playoff.
Yeah, you're in the 12-team hunt.
In our eyes, yeah.
And I mean, we're coming in as Notre Dame fans saying we played a good A&M team. Like, beginning of the season, we said A&M, Florida State, USC. Those are our 3 big games. Everything else we should win hands down.
Yeah.
We didn't do that at NIU, and we don't have to talk about that. But like, you guys haven't had the record, but we know you've got the athletes, and you have the potential. So, and for us, like, going into it, it's like, this is going to be a good measuring stick because we feel like we've gotten better the last 9 weeks. Yep. But are we good enough? Are we good enough to compete in the postseason? I think USC is going to give us a little bit better feel for that. And I'm not going into this game saying, oh, USC's only got 5 wins. 6 now. You won last week. It's like, I'm not going to say, oh, they're only a 6-win team. We're going to walk all over them because we know better. So I guess, what's the USC fan base? What's your take on the game?
Well, I think our problem is play calling. I don't think our problem's on the field. I think our problem, we really got to get our coach and our quarterback more synced up. I think that we got a little bit of disconnect there between the style of our quarterback and the types of calls our coach likes to make. I don't think our quarterback's necessarily adapted to our coach. I don't think our coach has adapted to the quarterback. So a little bit of disconnect there. For the SC fan base, it's pretty hard when you're going into the UCLA game, if we win this, we clinch a bowl. Yeah. We should not be clinching a bowl the second to last game of the season.
Yeah.
So going into the Notre Dame game, our last regular season game, it's like, it's so sad that we're going into this game. This should be like the exciting time. And instead it's like, okay, well, we just clinched a bowl berth last week, like the second to last game of the season. So our expectations are pretty low right now. I think the goal right now is, okay, maybe we get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more simpatico between the quarterback and the coach going into postseason. So maybe they get a little bit more comfortable before the spring next year. Where you look at a little bit better record. This fan base, we have very low expectations for Saturday. To be honest with you, we're not expecting much. We're just going to enjoy the day. We're going to appreciate the sunshine. Yeah. I am very grateful that I have lifelong friends who are going to be there. For us, it's about being with the Trojan family. Yeah. It's going to be a lot less about what's happening on the field. We hope we beat our rival. Any year we can beat Notre Dame and UCLA both is a big win. But it's really going to be more about just enjoying the day with friends than it's going to be about what happens on the field after the season we've had. It's been disappointing enough that we're not, don't have a lot riding on what's happening on this game, quite honestly, from this fan's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the coach is going to come in to win, and one of the things that we do in our podcast, and we talk about, like, what do we expect the opposing team to do to try and win? Like, what? Mm-hmm. And as I've researched USC and I paid attention to them, I think one of the things that surprises me is you guys aren't running the ball more.
Yeah,
because you got a phenomenally talented back.
Marks, I think his last name is. Yeah,
I mean,
it's like
Woody
1,100.
Marks.
Yeah, got like 1,100 yards.
and he should have more than that. I just don't think. I think his volume's down, and again, as it comes, Lincoln Riley has had success in the Big 12 as a passing team.
Yeah, Pac-12
Pac-12 as a passing guy, and he's trying to get back to that. But like
Big Ten football,
Notre Dame has been easy to run on when you have a passing threat, and you guys have more wide receiver talent than any team we've played this year. Now the question is, can the quarterback get the ball to him? Is the play calling going to allow it? Our strength has been our secondary. So I think it's going to be a very interesting test for us. Is our secondary as good as we think they are? Our best secondary player got injured, and he is out for the season. Our third best secondary player decided after 4 games that he was going to enter the transfer portal because he was getting less playing time than some red. So we're playing a lot of redshirt freshmen and sophomores in our secondary, and they've held up great. But we haven't played the talent of receiver at USC has. And so now it's going to come down to your quarterback play, I think, for success. But if there's anything that Notre Dame has given up, it's 4 and 5 yards a carry. And I think USC, if they go off tendency and they are willing to hand that ball off a little more, I think USC can give us fits.
Yep.
Because they're going to force us to put people in the box, and then we're going to be forced to play man coverage in the secondary, and you're going to have talented receivers to manage our secondary. We're going to be challenged like we hadn't before. So that's why I say for us, this is a great measuring stick game, because I don't think it's a game we can easily walk away from. I think your defense is so much improved this year over last year.
Last couple years.
Yeah. And
I think our defense is improved because our defensive coordinator is vastly improved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It makes a difference. I mean, our offense is better only because we got a better offensive coordinator. Like last year, it was a train wreck. And when some guy named Troy called up and said they wanted to hire offensive coordinator as head coach, we're like, hey, send Troy a Christmas card.
No kidding.
Take this guy. We had Jared Parker, who was kind of like,
what are we doing?
Like, it was terrible. The play calling was terrible, and it's just amazing, like what a good coach will do. So I think defensively, you guys have been pretty solid. I think your corners have played well. Our receivers are good, but we don't have an alpha. We don't have like a dominant receiver. And I think that makes it kind of interesting because your corners are much better than anything we've seen. I mean, our receivers got open against Army last week.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's an FCS talent team. I mean, they play for 60 minutes. They play hard. Respect the heck out of those kids. But they're not the talent level. We did okay against Florida State. I think they probably had comparable athletes. I don't know they were as good a team. Louisville has good athletes. So, I mean, and that was a little tougher game for us. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup because our strengths and your strengths are going to go against each other, and your weakness and our weakness will kind of expose each other. And so I think it's going to be a good game. I think the X factor for us is Riley Leonard. He's good. He's good Riley, bad Riley. When he's on, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But the thing that gives us hope is if we send 5 guys out in patterns and it breaks down, he's a decent runner. And I think Johnny Manziel proved way back when, if you can run the ball, you can win a game you shouldn't. And Alabama will be like, how do you stop this kid? Because everything's covered, no one's open, it takes off and runs for 10 yards. So, so I think that's going to be interesting. So I think it'll come down to how well your quarterback plays. Our defensive coordinator has done a really good job of disguising defenses. Mm-hmm. So when you got our young quarterback, inexperienced, not comfortable in the system yet, 4th start this week? 3rd, 4th start?
Not many, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's going to see things he's not seen yet and how well he can be prepared. But, at some point it always clicks for a quarterback. And 4 or 5 games in is usually when it clicks. So, he could have that it clicks and everything comes together. And
he's getting some NFL defenses this week that are disguising him. So hopefully we can confuse him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to try and do. Is we're going to try and throw some confusion at him. And we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup in that respect. I expect it to be a close game. I honestly think this game goes into the last 5 minutes before it's decided. Like, that's truly kind of where my head's at on this game. So
yeah, I
know you're saying that, and Jen, you're where I was after we lost to NIU.
Yeah,
you're guarded. You just don't want to be hurt. I get it. Sometimes you protect your heart. It's like, I just don't want to be hurt. I just, Carter was like, "Oh," I was like, "No, Carter, I don't want to be hurt. I'm protecting my heart. We're going to win by 3 if we win." So, and Notre Dame. The other thing I think is interesting is Notre Dame struggled in our kicking game lately, and if this game is tight and it is close, like our kicking game,
the field goal unit has been atrocious.
It's part of the reason we missed a field goal that we could have hit and beat NIU with. And beating NIU by 1 would be a whole lot easier than losing to NIU by 2. So our kicking game is sus. So if a game is close, that could be a difference maker in this whole thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how the whole thing plays out and how it folds out. And I expect it to be a tight game. And maybe I'm just being guarded and protecting my heart because if we lose this game, we're probably out of the 12-team playoff picture. But yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. So I think I'm excited to see how it goes out. I'm excited to go to LA and see the Coliseum. Like we were debating where we were going to stay at, and I'm normally a Marriott guy where you're staying at the Marriott and they turned the lights on off on you earlier. That was funny. But we decided to stay at the USC hotel specifically because it was available, it was close, and I want to walk the campus. And one of the things we haven't got to do much, we got to walk the A&M campus. Mm-hmm. We got to walk the Purdue campus, but all our other away games have been at like neutral sites. We're at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and Carter and I have been to Georgia Tech before, and we know the Georgia Tech campus, and we've been to the stadium there. But you don't get the same feel as being on the college campus. We get to all these neutral site games, so I'm excited to go out and walk the USC campus Saturday morning, and kind of just take it all in. Go to the tailgate with you guys, and just take in the whole revelry of just the USC experience, and it'll be a lot of fun, I think. And I expect it to be a good game. I really do. I don't expect it to. I'll be shocked if the score's more than 10-point difference. I'll be shocked.
Well, I really hope that you are. I hope it goes right in line with what you're thinking. I hope our play calling is so much improved that it is a close game. But I can't wait for you to walk the campus too. Can't wait for you to have the full USC tailgate experience, for you to hear Conquest. You're going to hear Conquest. It's going to be right next. You're going to have the trombone section.
Oh, yeah.
Right there in the middle of the tailgate. So that's going to be really fun. So I can't wait for you to have that experience.
Yeah, and
regardless of the game outcome.
Yeah, and for me, I think one of the first games I ever took Christy to was Notre Dame USC at Notre Dame. I think that's one of the first games I ever took her to. And it was one of those games where USC actually was up at halftime, and we weren't playing great. We came back and won it in the second half, and that was one of her first. I think it was her very first game, and that would have been mid-90s, 95, 96-ish, somewhere in that time period. So Notre Dame wasn't great. USC was not great. We were both slightly above average at best. And like I said, so it's just a long-standing rivalry. So for me, there's a lot of there goes those lights again. So yeah, for me, it's exciting. We'll run through this with the lights out. They got them back on for you.
They turned back on for me.
So let's figure this out. Score predictions. What do you think, Jen? We'll let you go first, or you want Carter and I to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
35-24.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. What do you got, Carter?
28-7 Irish.
28-7.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yep.
Ouch.
Sorry. Just what I'm thinking. I've been close the last couple of weeks too. I'm sorry to tell you this.
I really think,
and I think it's close. I think it's 14-7 at halftime, and the Irish 2 scores one in the third, one start of the fourth. I think it's a very close game. The score, it's not as outrageous as it seems. I think 14-7 at halftime. 28-7 final.
I'm feeling 21-17 Irish.
A 4-point game.
My full expectation is whoever gets the opening kickoff will score. And then I think the other team will come down and match that score.
Yeah.
Notre Dame usually has a really good first series and defensively doesn't have a good first series. I think our defense adjusts after the first series. So I would expect that USC is going to come down and score pretty easy, or we're going to go down and score pretty easy, vice versa, whoever gets the ball first. I think the first 2 possessions are scores. I think the game gets kind of stagnant after that. Defenses adjust, offenses fall off. It gets stagnant. I think probably third quarter, there's a couple of scores. I think USC even gets a lead. Just going on what USC, I think USC gets up 14-17 at the end of the third quarter.
Oh, man.
And I think Notre Dame finds a score somewhere in that last 5 minutes to win it.
Yeah, I don't see the Irish passing the ball. This could be one of those weeks, and we've seen more passing touchdowns out of the Irish. I think this could be, with my score prediction, I'm thinking like maybe even 4 rushing touchdowns. Like Riley gets 1, Jeremiah Love with 2, and Price with 1. It's kind of like my bold.
Yeah.
Like all of our touchdowns might be on the ground this week.
Yeah. I'm thinking 3 scores for us. I'm thinking 2 scores and a field goal for USC. So
yeah, I was gonna say don't pick us to score a field goal because that's not happening.
Yeah,
hasn't happened in a while.
We'll drop kick it before we kick a place kick. For sure. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a tight game, and that'll make it interesting.
Yeah.
I was just looking up. Do you know what the over/under is on the game?
51.5, which I think. Yeah, I don't know on that one.
I take the under.
That's where I'm leaning, just because I think Notre Dame's defense has been pretty good. USC's defense has been a lot improved. It's going to be one of the, I don't want to say the better. I mean, it's just going to be one of those rivalry games. I think it's going to be a stalemate. I think it's going to defensive battle. Offenses are going to struggle a little bit for part of this game. So 51.5. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the only thing gives me a little bit of hope, and I went back. Like I think you guys beating UCLA last week and being bowl eligible, makes this game a little less important, because winning this game doesn't get you into the college football playoff, and it doesn't kick you out of a bowl game. And I think it's one of the things we talked about is when a coach loses, and we had this conversation after our NIU loss. When a coach loses, how does the team respond? Because coaches lose teams after tough losses, or they regain teams.
Yep.
And our coach has been very good at regaining the team and going forward after that. So the real question is, you guys have struggled. Have you turned a corner after the UCLA win?
Yeah.
And are you going to continue that going forward? Like, or are these kids to the point? Because the NIL, I mean, and we got to be honest about this. You talked about losing recruits. There are probably players on our roster. There's probably players on your roster that have got NIL deals set up to be at another school next year. It's just the reality. I mean, it's just, and I think we saw this, I don't know if you saw this, but LSU just lost the number 1 quarterback in the country to Michigan, and as a recruit. And I guess Dave Portnoy was part of this whole thing, and like Dave Portnoy and some lady who's a USC or Michigan fan and graduate whose husband's worth $1 billion.
Second richest man in the world.
Yeah. They get together and they call this kid that's an LSU kid, and it's like, they just talked about this today. It's like, no coach was even on the call. It's like, you got 2 boosters offering this kid like $12 million to come to Michigan next year, and there's no talk of a coach about how I'm going to develop you or get you to the NFL. It's like, it's a crazy world. And I know, like, we talked about Benjamin Morris, who was Notre Dame's top corner coming into the season, who got injured. He's going to be one of the top corners taken in the draft. If he's probably first or second. If he didn't have the injury, he's probably first. And I know last year he had schools calling him, like offering him money to go to Notre Dame to other schools. And, and so what's happening. And it's like, I like the kids getting paid. I just don't like the way it's being regulated, I guess. And that's, so.
You mean not regulated?
Oh, yeah, not regulated, or the failure to regulate it. So I think that makes it pretty interesting. We've got a lot to play for. I don't think our kids are checking out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I think that's a risk USC has is, the season.
Got to put good film out there, though, for the transfer portal.
Yeah, well, the film's probably out there at this point. At this point. So, yeah, I think that'll be interesting.
One thing USC does have going for him is Marcus Freeman is 0-2 when playing at USC. He's lost as a head coach in 2022, and he lost back as a player in 2008.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage. Marcus Freeman has not won the LA Coliseum.
Now, I did hear that he's been playing on the TVs in the athletic complex all week, the 2022 game.
Yeah.
Like, he's playing that for the players, like, I do not want to lose. So he's trying to motivate them. So we won't take you lightly in that respect. So it'll be interesting to see how USC's team responds. And I think there's so much the mental side of sport that people don't pay attention to. And, you have a kid that's at a college playing college football, and you understand what high-level football looks like. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, I think
Can't wait.
Oh, we're losing the feed on you, Jen. Oh, we lost Jen.
All right. Well, we were going to wrap it up.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap it up.
Obviously, thank you, Jen, for being on and talking about USC football with us. And
look forward to seeing you on Saturday and enjoying. Well, I think it's going to be a great game.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun getting out to Southern California, enjoying the sunshine, like she said, getting all the game day atmosphere in, and definitely going to be a new experience for us. Third college campus this year for us. So we got a contest again this week. Last week was not our best week, Irish Side Nation. We weren't as close as we've been the last few weeks. We weren't nail-biting at the very end. Notre Dame, I think, put up a lot more points than we thought.
Yeah, I think everybody expected the Army team to be a little more stiff on the defense side because they were ranked so high defensively.
Yep.
So I don't know maybe the Notre Dame offense is just much better than we think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think Jeremiah Love's better than I think he is. I know he's good.
Yeah.
I don't think Jadarian Price is better than I think he is because I know he's good.
Yep.
Riley Leonard was better than I expected.
Yeah.
We got good Riley. We got the Riley we need to make a run for the next 5 games.
Yep, exactly. So let's get into it. We got a contest this weekend. You have to be following the Irish 65 podcast on social media. You have to correctly comment your score prediction underneath this post.
Prior to the game.
Prior to that 3:30 Eastern kickoff. And you have to tag someone under that post with your score prediction to be entered into this contest. If you correctly guess the score prediction, that Sam Hartman jersey will be shipped directly to you.
We'll get it to you.
It'll be awesome.
I want someone to want it, to have it, to hold it. Christmas present to yourself.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Great thing to have. So good luck this week. Get those score predictions in, and let's win it this week.
Yeah, and let's talk college football playoff because I think the CFP rankings came out.
Yep. We got movement. We got movement.
And we got moved up. I know you were thinking we'd get moved up too.
I was hopeful.
You really felt like, and I was starting to buy in. I was drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
But we didn't. We didn't get moved ahead of Penn State. We stayed behind Penn State. But we're up.
Yeah, we did move, and that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see not like on the bubble of that home playoff game, a little more comfortable on that home playoff game, as long as we handle business. And what I kept reading is, now I thought if we were going to move, it was going to be that last week, or this today, and get that ranking up. But we do have a common opponent if we can with Penn State now with USC this week. And Penn State went to overtime with this USC.
We also have Purdue.
Yes,
they played Purdue, and we beat Purdue by a much larger margin than Penn State beat Purdue.
Yep.
So USC will give us a second common opponent, and they beat USC by 3.
Yeah, in overtime. I remember it was an overtime game. Yeah. I think it was by 3. I think 33-30 was something off the top of my head. But
so obviously a loss to USC, we're out.
We are not hosting a home playoff game. It's a very
slim chance of staying in the top 12.
Yeah.
If we lose to USC, maybe if we lose close, we get a.
We're battling with some big dogs there at the back of the pack.
Because again, that NIU loss counts as 1.5. Fair or unfair, it counts as 1.5. So we're a 2.5 loss team. We're in the same conversation as those 3 loss teams at that point. I think the only way we'd get in if we lose to USC would be if Texas A&M somehow pulls off the miracle run and wins the SEC, which no one would expect.
Yeah.
But if they can pull that off, then our resume's got a good win under its belt with a top 10 team, a number 2, maybe number 3 seed. But if we win, and we win by a convincing margin,
14-21, yeah,
then there's all the argument in the world. 2 like opponents, we beat them by much more than what Penn State did.
Yep.
The committee has justification. In fact, there's no justification not to move us ahead of Penn State at that point.
Very true.
But it really, as long as we get that home playoff game, it just comes down to matchup at that point.
Yeah.
And Miami, SMU,
Georgia.
Yeah. Georgia, I think, is going to win the SEC. So I don't think we'll see Georgia first round. Maybe Tennessee. And it's so hard to predict right now because it all depends on what happens. We
won't see Tennessee in the second round because it's either going to be Georgia, Texas A&M, or
first round. Who are we going to play first round is what I was talking
about. Oh yeah, I was just saying it's going to be Georgia, Texas, or Texas A&M and the SEC championship winner. But yeah, right now how the bracket rolls out, so you've got Notre Dame that would roll into that 7, playing SMU at the 10, which would be very interesting. Notre Dame, I think I saw, would be 10.5-point favorites, and then if we won, that would be playing Texas on that neutral site. And I don't hate that matchup for the Irish. I mean, it's an SEC team, but they're one of the teams that I think has the most unknown about them. So that would
Yeah. I don't know how good or bad they really are.
Yep.
I think they've got potential offensively to be really good.
Yep.
Their defenses look solid, but they're beatable. The game would be at Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. And I think the Irish have a lot of fan base there, so it wouldn't be an overwhelming home game for Texas.
Yep.
Although they're a lot closer, a lot more fans in the area.
Yep.
I think there would be a good contingent of Notre Dame fans there. So it would be an interesting matchup if it fell that way. It's not going to fall that way.
No, it's going to change.
It's going to change. I mean, what we know is the college football ranking, the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's great for a lot of conversation for people who are making a living on social media or in media in general, whether it's podcasting or whatever. It gives them a lot of things to write about, talk about, that people want to read. We're all interested in it. I mean, we're interested in it, but I'm not going to get too excited about the matchup just yet.
Yep.
But you got to look at those teams in that 8 to 14 spot and say, those are teams that could move up, could move back, teams we could play.
I was going to say, and that's what I was going to get to next. So we're the 7-10, but you look at the 11 seed, that's the IU. I mean, so it's like, okay, that's a realistic possibility.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen stuff about people, they won't match up conferences. I think they will put an IU versus Penn State in the first round. They won't try to switch that around. They didn't play this year. And I know they said they wouldn't move.
I think they'd avoid a rematch.
Yeah.
But I don't think they would avoid conferences.
No.
There's no point in it. Let's just say A&M makes it to the SEC championship and loses to Georgia.
Yeah.
Would there be a problem with A&M having to play, another SEC team like Tennessee, who they hadn't played yet? Why would there be? Kind of a thing. So, let it play out. If IU had to play Penn State, I think the way it sets up now, that would be a first-round matchup. IU traveling to Penn State. I don't see a problem with that. I don't think the committee see a problem with that. There's 2 teams. They're arguably who's better in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
They didn't play.
They both didn't make the conference championship. They both didn't play each other in the regular season.
So let them play it out.
Yep.
It's not if it was a rematch, they're not going to let Oregon and Ohio State play
for the third time, right?
For the third time in the first round.
Yeah.
Or even the second round, probably.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that shakes out. All I know is the larger your stadium is, the more likely you are to be 5 through 8.
Yeah.
The smaller your stadium is.
Yeah.
I know that's my conspiracy theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, don't blame me on it.
It's my argument for why IU is out and falling as far as they did after I lost to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Penn State fell very far.
And I think one thing is with these teams that are in the playoff right now, it's going to be very interesting with the Ohio State-Oregon matchup. Like, these teams, I don't think are going to be punished very much for losing the conference championship game. Like,
no.
The committee wants to put so much emphasis on these conference championships. If you're Ohio State and you lose this game, a conference championship game, I think they're still going to be the 5 seed. Like, I don't think they're going to drop and be the 6 or 7 seed because the committee is really wanting to put the emphasis on like the importance of making that conference championship game and winning it. So I think that'll be a really interesting thing to watch because the last thing the committee can do is drop Ohio State to a 10 seed and not hosting a playoff game after losing to the number 1 team twice. Once on the road and once at conference championship.
I think if Ohio State loses to Oregon a second time, it's a half loss, not a full loss. I think that's their record, even though it's something in 2, it's really something in 1.5. Like our record isn't just something in 1, it's something in 1.5, I think, in people's mind. But again, I think if you go to the SEC side of things, the loser of the SEC game could be a 3-loss team.
Yep.
And will they stay in that top 8? I think they will, but only because we're talking it's either A&M or Texas or Georgia.
Yep.
I think Georgia's the favorite to win that in my mind.
Yeah.
And you look at the size of the stadium at A&M, and you look at the size of the stadium in Austin at Texas.
Yeah.
I think those are large stadiums. I think they're going to get benefit of the doubt. People are going to call it SEC bias, but it's going to be large stadium bias. They're going to get in that 7-8 seed area. And they're going to get to host a first-round game, which will be good. I mean, a good atmosphere, good fan base.
Well, if Texas A&M loses the SEC championship, I don't think they will make it in because they'll be 4 loss.
If A&M loses
the championship, if they beat Texas, then lose the championship,
then there's no weight on making the championship game.
But they'd be 4 losses.
I know.
I'm just saying I don't think they would be able to jump.
I would not be surprised if they fall Yeah, I think eighth seed. If they make the championship.
So you're saying a 4-loss A&M would host a playoff game?
I think that's possible.
And they're sitting at, what was it, 20 this week?
Yeah.
So you think they can beat Texas?
But if they beat Texas, they got to move up. Texas is number 2 or 3.
You think they'll jump 10 spots, 12 spots?
I don't know.
Oof.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, they're not in, like, striking distance. I like to call striking distance. You know what I mean?
You don't expect them to jump 15 spots. No.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
but if they beat Texas, how far up do they move?
Yeah, I mean, realistically,
the number 3 team in the country.
I think the most we've seen 7 or 8 spots this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the most we've seen. I just don't see them. So that's jumping from 20 to 12.
But this is the second most important seed or ranking because this is the last one before the final. And so the committee is going to be looking past this ranking to next week and saying, because what happens if you move A&M up 5 spots and you drop Texas? How do you drop Texas with the loss to A&M? How do you drop them 20 spots?
Yeah.
So something's going to have to give. And what if A&M moves up 5 spots, 6 spots, and then they turn around and they beat Georgia?
Yeah, well.
Are you going to leave them at like 12 and drop? Because then you're going to have a hard time keeping SEC teams in at that point. Yeah. So I think A&M gets a lot more credit for a win than anybody else has, and I think they get a lot more damage if they lose. But
I just don't see a 4-loss team in that top 4 non-champions, but that's just my opinion.
I would agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that it's A&M and 100,000+ seating stadium. I think there's a bias there, whether it's, and I may be on an island in that thought, but that's kind of my thought. So we'll see.
Yeah, that one just going to be your hardest one.
That's my hot take, and I'm sticking with it. So yeah, I think there's a whole lot of movement to go on. I think it's going to be exciting. I mean, there's a lot on the line this week in rivalry week.
Yeah, and it's an exciting time. Like, this is what we signed up for. We signed up for the drama. We signed up for all this with the new college football playoff. Like, more teams having action this week. More teams. I mean, who thought we'd be sitting at Thanksgiving talking about a Purdue IU football game? IU's got to win.
Yeah,
like to stay in the playoff. I mean, that's entertaining living here in Indiana. I mean, not a fan of either school, but I mean, it's a 1 win or 2, whatever Purdue is, 1-win Purdue team that could go in and spoil Indiana's season.
And that would make Purdue's year.
Yeah, that would fix a lot of problems.
Second win, but it would, if they win the first and the last one. As long as that last one's against IU, I mean, that makes their year.
Fix a lot of problems around there.
And we know the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry's big.
Oh yeah, I mean Ohio State struggled the last few years against Michigan. I mean,
you cannot count Michigan out. There's no reason they should win that game.
Nope.
But you can't count them out.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, and we've got the same thing with USC.
USC, yeah.
There's no reason to believe that's a cakewalk.
No.
So, like, all across the board, I think it's an interesting time. It's going to be interesting games. So.
And in the last few weeks, we've seen these upsets happening. Like, there's no business of Oklahoma beating Alabama last week, but they just owned them. Like, it could happen to any of these teams this week. I think that's the fun part, the scary part. Just don't know what's going to happen. It's a rivalry week. Like, it's going to happen to some team.
And it's also
not Notre Dame, right?
It's also what makes the playoff look that much more exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody is vulnerable. Now, you could argue Oregon's the only untouchable team because they've handled business. They haven't lost.
Yep.
But I think they're susceptible to losing. I think they can be beat.
Yeah.
So I think it's anybody's ball game.
Yeah. And they got a rivalry game this week, but then they got to travel back to Indiana the following week for Ohio State in the Big Ten Championships. They're traveling back to the Midwest. Ohio State, I'm assuming, is going to be mostly home crowd for that one in Lucas Oil.
Yeah, it's
going to be a heck of a game, but
it'll be a pro Ohio State crowd for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Oregon.
Yeah, so it's an exciting time. This weekend is going to be super exciting. Matter of fact, this weekend may be more exciting than championship weekend.
Yeah.
Because I think championship weekend, we're going to know the team. I'm with you. You were saying this all along, and I wasn't sure, but I've bought into it. Anybody who makes their conference championship, like in the SEC, the Big Ten, maybe the ACC.
I would say ACC's got 3 teams that would.
They got a chance at, like, if you make your conference champion in one of those 3 conferences, I think you got a good chance.
Yeah, Big 12, I don't think has that. Like, they're not doing that.
So the only drama is whether you're the number 1 seed or not. I think A&M is questionable whether they're going to be in or out.
Yeah,
I think they're in. I think they're in the top 8. But I wouldn't be shocked.
You're saying if they beat Texas this week.
If they beat Texas this week. If they made the conference championship, I wouldn't be shocked if they fell out for a loss to Georgia. but I wouldn't be shocked if they stayed in the top 8 either. So
yeah.
I think it makes an interesting time. Unlike any other postseason we've ever come across in college football.
Yep.
I'm old school. I remember when there was no college football playoff. It was before the BCS.
Yeah.
You got to the end of the year, you went to a bowl game, and then the writers and the coaches polls basically voted, and you were a consensus national champion if both of them put you number 1 at the final ranking.
Yep.
You were a co-national championship of a split.
Yep.
And if you're Alabama and the Alabama Times calls you the number 1 team in the country at the end of the year, you claim it as national championship.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's exciting. So I am so looking forward to this week's trip. I'm so looking forward to getting to USC. I want to see if this Notre Dame team, we've gotten better every week, and I think we're going to play probably the best team we've played since Louisville.
Yeah.
And probably better team than Louisville talent-wise.
Yeah.
And I think USC's got a lot to play for, beating UCLA last week. So I'm excited to see if we're as good as I think we are.
Yeah.
I think our defense is that good.
Yep.
And I think our offense has grown a lot. And USC will be a good test of where we're at going into postseason. If we can do what we've done recently to USC,
mm-hmm.
and we can beat them by a larger margin, and I think we've given every school we've played in the last 9 weeks
their worst loss.
Their worst loss.
Yeah.
So if we can do that again against USC, I feel really good about our position going into the.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be easy, but I feel really good about our position. So
yeah, it's going to be a battle. Know that for sure.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Irish 365 podcast.
You can find us wherever you get your podcast.
We are on YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Irish 365 Pod.
And you can always reach us at our email, irish365pod@gmail.com.
Good night.
And God bless.